We live our lives under the comforting delusion of biological supremacy. We perceive ourselves as the undisputed masters of the earth, protected by our skyscrapers and technologies. We have built an entire civilization on the assumption that the cognitive gap between us and the rest of the animal kingdom is an impassable chasm. We trust that because we can build silicon mines, we are forever exempt from the laws of natural selection. But biology tells a much more malevolent story. Every dominant species in history has eventually been displaced, not always by a lack of fitness, but by the sudden emergence of a superior successor. Our position at the top of the food chain is a temporary glitch. What happens when the gap closes? What happens when the creatures we have experimented upon and ignored suddenly awaken to the reality of our fragility? This is the clinical reality of a world where humanity is no longer the predator, but the prey. Welcome to Discovered. To understand the nightmare, we must look at the encephalization quotient, the ratio between brain mass and body mass. For millions of years, the human species has held the highest score. It is our only shield. We are physically pathetic. We lack the claws of the feline and the raw strength of the primate. We survive solely on the complexity of our neural architecture. But the intelligence ceiling is not fixed. Throughout the natural world, we are witnessing accelerated cognitive drift. In the laboratories of global powers and in the shadows of our industrial waste, the neural pathways of other species are undergoing a radical expansion. The barrier is thinning. The most immediate threat lies in our closest genetic relatives, the great apes. For decades, primatologists have marveled at the intelligence of chimpanzees. We have documented their use of tools and medicinal plants, but these are the observations of a dominant species looking down. The dark reality is that chimpanzees possess a working memory and a visual processing speed that already exceeds our own. They can recall complex patterns in a fraction of a second, a relic of their ancestors that we traded for slower, analytical thinking. What happens if a bioengineered neuropathogen crosses the species barrier? If the neural inhibitors in a primate's brain are removed, we are not looking at talking animals. We are looking at a species with 4 times the muscular density of a human, combined with a tactical, predatory intellect. In a conflict of dominance, a coordinated group of chimpanzees would not engage in a war. They would engage in a harvest. They have observed us for centuries. They know our weaknesses. They would strike at our supply lines and our homes with a level of brutality that the modern human mind cannot process. The forest would move into the suburbs. But the primate threat is only the most obvious fracture. We must look at the urban infiltrators, the species that thrive in the cracks of our civilization. Consider the Corvid family: crows, ravens, and magpies. These are the avian versions of primates. They possess a decentralized intelligence that allows them to recognize human faces for generations and plan for future events. Most disturbingly, they possess a collective hive mind of information sharing. Imagine a coordinated avian intelligence, a world where the billions of birds in our cities are no longer scenery, but an observational network for a new power. They watch our movements from the sky, recording the rhythms of our lives. If their cognitive capacity were to shift by even a few percentage points, the sky would become a ceiling of surveillance. They could disrupt our electrical grids and coordinate mass attacks on our infrastructure. We would be a species living in permanent vegetal paranoia. Then there is the intelligence of the cephalopod. The octopus is the most alien mind on this planet. It possesses a decentralized nervous system where each arm can think and act independently. They solve puzzles and manipulate objects with a dexterity that rivals the human hand. Their only limitation has been their aquatic prison, but as the oceans warm, we see the emergence of extremophile cephalopods. What if they adapt to the land? A creature that can compress its body to the size of a coin, that is functionally invisible, and that possesses a predatory curiosity would be the ultimate infiltrator. You would lock your doors, but the intruder would enter through the sink. You would sleep in your bed, unaware that a decentralized intelligence is observing you from the vents. The cephalopod dominion would be a silent erosion of our safety until the surface world is merely a resource for the depths. The psychological gallows of an animal dominion is the loss of the moral shield. Human beings believe we are special because we possess a soul or higher consciousness. We assume any other intelligence would operate on our terms with mercy or justice. But the animal kingdom operates on the law of the abyss. To a predator that has achieved parity with your intellect, you are not a person, you are a protein source. The most terrifying aspect of a non-human dominion is the total lack of empathy. They would use our technologies against us without guilt. They would watch us suffer with the same clinical indifference we have shown them for millennia in our laboratories. We must examine the livestock scenario. If humanity loses its cognitive edge, we will be repurposed. A dominant primate or avian species would realize the value of the human body as a biological resource. We would be the ones in the cages. We would undergo selective breeding to produce more docile, efficient laborers for their new world. The roles would be reversed with mathematical precision. Our history, religions, and philosophies would be meaningless scratchings on the walls of our pens, remnants of a species that thought it was the master, only to realize it was merely a placeholder. The truth is that the great awakening of the animal kingdom would be a clinical process. It would begin with a cognitive pandemic, a virus that destroys the human frontal lobe while boosting the neuroplasticity of other species. We would witness a global mental inversion as our ability to maintain complex systems, power plants, data centers, hospitals begins to fail. We would watch as the creatures around us take up the tools we dropped. We would see chimpanzees using our weapons. We would see crows manipulating our digital interfaces. The natural world would reclaim our cities with an intelligence that is as cold as it is efficient. The economic and social collapse would be instantaneous. Our civilization is a high-maintenance machine. The moment oversight is compromised, it breaks. Within weeks, the lights would go out. The internet, the collective memory of our species, would vanish. We would be thrust back into prehistoric darkness, but we are no longer the most dangerous thing in that darkness. We would be the soft species in a world of hard intelligence. The discovery of neural drift in primates is the final proof. In West Africa, chimpanzees have been observed using specialized rocks to crack nuts and even building shrine-like piles of stones, suggesting the birth of ritual. They are following the same path we took 1,000,000 years ago, but they are doing it while observing our failures. They are the beta testers of civilization, and they are ready for the full release. This is the objective danger. It is not an alien invasion from the stars. It is a homegrown replacement. It is the realization that we are a failed experiment in consciousness. The Earth is a self-correcting system, and if the human brain shield fails, the system will move on to the next candidate without hesitation. For centuries, we manipulated the DNA of animals to suit our needs. We played with fire, and now the sparks are landing on the dry grass of our arrogance. The Franken-Species we created in our labs are the most likely candidates for our replacement. They possess the strength we lack and the intelligence we gave them. The abyss of dominion is the realization that our dignity is a luxury provided by a lack of competition. We ensured our monopoly on thought through the genocide of other hominid species 10,000 years ago, but we cannot kill the entire animal kingdom. The cognitive gap is a dam that is starting to leak. When it breaks, the flood will be made of claws, teeth, and a calculating gaze that recognizes us as obsolete. The floor is thinner than you think. The cage door is not as secure as you believe. The pet at the foot of your bed is not looking at you with love. It is looking at you with analytical curiosity, waiting for the moment your hand shakes and the keys fall. We are a species being audited by the world we thought we owned, and the results are coming back negative. If you are prepared to face the truths that the world chooses to ignore, stay with us. There are many more scientific anomalies and biological horrors waiting to be unburied. We will continue to explore the truths hidden in the shadows of our biological limitations. Subscribe to Discovered and activate the notification bell. In a world of comfortable delusions, we provide the cold clinical evidence of reality. Do not miss our next report on the scenarios that threaten the very definition of humanity. See you in the next investigation. Remember, the gaze of the predator is already upon you. Sleep with one eye open. The end is closer than you think.